Welcome to Independent RX Forum with the National Community Pharmacists Association, America's leading advocate and business education provider for independent community pharmacists. Independent RX Forum is powered by RX Connection.
Hello and welcome to Independent RX Forum, the official podcast of NCPA. I'm your host, John Beckner. We're glad you could join us. NCPA and the National Grocers Association, NGA, recently launched a new cross-section coalition called the Main Street Competition Coalition. And my guest today is Chris Jones, the executive director of this new organization. Chris, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me here.
So let's begin by talking about what was the impetus behind forming this coalition? What were the reasons behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been a great historic partnership between the independent grocers and the independent community pharmacists for almost a century, dating back to the Great Depression in the 1930s, and was responsible for a lot of the antitrust laws that are supposed to protect competition today. So we have always worked very well together between grocers and pharmacists. And I think one of the things we've both realized over the last 5 years where we really started working more closely is that the challenges that we face with respect to market power are so big that it's too big for any one association to take on their own. And by aggregating the political capital of Main Street and coming together around solutions that will advance Main Street businesses writ large, we'll all be much better for it. We'll be able to tackle these challenges across all of the institutions where these battles are fought. We see these battles at the state level, the federal level, the courts, public opinion, the economists. And so I think by organizing as Main Street, we'll do a lot better job in advancing the solutions that Main Street businesses want to see.
So both groups have been battling, vertical integration for a long time, and like you said, I guess this is a way to combine the strengths of both organizations and moving forward.
Exactly. I think these problems, while they have different manifestations in the various marketplaces, at the end of the day, it's the same sort of behavior that is boxing out the independent businesses. It's market power, vertical integration that's being used to squeeze out the competition. And we see it manifest itself in parts of the country that really need access to food and medicine. These are the rural areas where independent pharmacies, independent grocers tend to locate, where their larger chain counterparts don't invest as much. And so these are, I think, the communities that really need us. And I think it's why each association independently has been successful in our advocacy, because I think there's a broad realization in our politics that we need to protect these businesses. We need to make sure that they're able to compete.
Yeah, in their own sphere of influence, I think both the grocers and the pharmacists are pillars of their community. A lot of our members are in rural, underserved areas, and I guess the NGA group is the same.
That's right. I mean, if you think about like a strip mall, where you've got anchor institutions, whether it's grocery store or pharmacies, a lot of ancillary businesses rely on that foot traffic. And so if a grocery store goes out of business, what the NGA's research shows is that there's this domino effect. So the small bank, the dry cleaner, the restaurant, you don't get that foot traffic, then you lose a lot of other businesses that are kind of anchors for those small towns. So if you don't have a viable, you're sacrificing both the economic health of the community and physical health if they don't have access to food or medicine.
Well, you end up with we've talked a lot at NCPA about pharmacy deserts and
right,
and the same with food deserts.
Right,
and you end up with a double whammy, if you will.
Double whammy, and then it makes people less healthy, and so that puts stress on our healthcare system as a consequence.
So this new coalition was launched with a big kickoff event. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we launched.
Who was there and stuff.
Yeah, so we launched at the National Press Club last week. We invited a bipartisan duo to kick us off because I think what we've realized is Main Street is not a partisan issue, and we wanted to demonstrate that. So we had a congressman who was a former independent grocer himself talk about the challenges of competing in a consolidated market. And then we had Alvaro Bedoya, who was a former FTC commissioner, who was a big champion for pharmacy and grocery, also kick us off. But we had a lot of good discussion. The heads of both the independent national grocers and NCPA, helped kick us off as well. And then we had really good cross-sector discussions with a farmer who faces this vertical integration problem, in a lot of the same way that we face on Main Street. We had a community pharmacist and a grocer kind of collaborating about how we can be working together to solve these problems. And then we also put a panel together that demonstrated the cross-ideological imperative for this. So a very conservative group that is leaning into trying to promote competition, and a very liberal group who's doing the same. It's one area where the ideological spectrum actually comes together, and it's kind of a rare instance of bipartisanship in a very polarized time in Washington.
There are not a whole lot of bipartisan issues in Washington, but certainly when it comes to vertical integration and PBMs, that's certainly a great example of that.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's interesting too because neither party has agreement on these issues. So you find sections of both parties that agree, and sometimes it makes for odd bedfellows.
Yeah. So I'm curious, were there any representatives from Congress in attendance at this kickoff event?
Yeah, well, it was early in the morning. We had Congressman Mike Ruley, a Republican from Ohio, who joined us at the beginning. A number of congressional staff. We had some antitrust enforcers. The press was there. A lot of advocates, folks who are our partners in these battles, a growing area. But we got a lot of attention and are making a lot of noise. And as far as I can tell, there's a lot of these other Main Street businesses groups who want to help and support us, and that's exciting.
Very exciting. So NCPA and NGA were the initial investors. What's the plan moving forward in terms of involving other organizations?
Yeah, so we're operating kind of like an association under a dues model. So we've got a little bit of running room so we can recruit membership, get them paying dues. We already have a decent amount of members. There was an earlier iteration of the Main Street Coalition, very informally put together in the post-COVID days. So we have retained almost all of the membership that we built in the informal coalition.
Right.
Folks are willing to pay dues, but we are looking to expand, in particular, I think, in the food and agriculture sector, where this market power vertical integration problem is very profound, especially now with all the stress that's on the food system in the form of higher prices and challenges kind of globally, and then in healthcare too, because I think there's common cause between pharmacists, patients, and providers. So we want to try to expand out our coalition that way.
So talk about the things that the group is going to be involved with moving forward. I know NCPA has forged a very close working relationship with the FTC. What's the plan to work with that group and work with Congress?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to present as a united coalition solutions to our federal antitrust enforcers, the FTC and the DOJ. There's also a lot of action right now at the state level with state attorneys general. They're kind of starting to have some mojo when it comes to antitrust enforcement, and so we're going to the attorneys general, trying to work with them on solutions. We're also trying to find opportunities for private enforcement as well, because I think if you want the competition laws to be in full effect, you want a robust enforcement in the private, through private court as well as the public enforcers. So we're trying to, get all of the pistons in that engine, humming. In addition to that, we're looking at kind of bigger picture reforms that can help us, either bring cases or help enforcers have an easier time, because a lot of times, as you guys know, it takes a long time to remedy this conduct, and sometimes you feel like you're drowning now. So how do you shorten the time frame to do that? We're trying to address barriers to litigation like forced arbitration, which is something that a lot of pharmacists feel with respect to their contracts to PBMs. We're trying to provide more funding to the antitrust enforcers so that they have the capacity to match the scale of the challenge in the economy, and doing other sorts of things like that to make it easier to bring these sorts of cases.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think people are starting to pay attention, FTC, Congress, but the rubber meets the road when it comes to enforcement. So I think that's, the power of these combined organizations having an impact there.
Right. I think if we're working together, sharing kind of strategies, working with really good lawyers who know what they're doing in this space. We've invited lawyers to work with us. Then we'll all be better for it in terms of an organized effort that we think will move the needle faster in the right direction.
So any plans to work with the, make sure I got this right, National Association of Insurance Commissioners? I know in a lot of cases the states delegate enforcement opportunities to that. Any plans to work with that group?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is to try to take these fights to every front where they're had. So I think we're not going to stop at AGs or the FTC. Anywhere we can kind of provide support, we're gonna go there. So I think that could make a lot of sense.
Right. Anything else that you'd like to add for our listeners?
I
this
think
new coalition.
I think the key thing is to strengthen numbers. We want a big audience of independent businesses. We want state groups to join us. And so we would invite folks who have organizations that they're a part of to consider taking a look at membership. You can find us at www.mainstreetcompetition.com. We're on socials. So anything we can do to kind of get support from the folks out there on our fight is extremely helpful.
Yeah. I love the name, Main Street Competition Coalition.
It fits, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thanks again for joining me, Chris. Really appreciate it and for sharing this information.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.